Hello again, guys. Thanks for tuning in to episode 2 of the Good Healer channel on YouTube. Today, we're going to be jumping right into a controversial topic. All of these are controversial topics. That's the point of this channel, is to start having active but also productive conversations about topics that are tough to discuss, might ruffle some feathers, but I think are also necessary to bring about real change in not just the lives of patients, but the lives of those of us who provide medicine to our patients. We're going to be talking about concierge medicine today. We're going to be talking about kind of the good, bad, and the ugly, and why people seek the concierge system, what the concierge system actually is for folks that might not know, and then what some of the more detrimental outcomes of concierge medicine look like. This particular episode is geared mostly towards patients. So, providers, welcome to sit in. But the gist of this conversation is going to be geared towards helping patients select ethical medicine for their healthcare, helping to start putting together a tiny bit of a definition of what ethical medicine actually looks like, a very tiny fragment. And like always, like I promised at the onset of this project, we're not only going to be defining what ethical medicine doesn't look like, we're going to, again, start piecing together that definition of what it does look like and helping you as a consumer of medicine make your choices about who you see and who you don't see based on some of these ethical principles. Okay. All right. So, I want to start this by saying that I firmly feel that people should be allowed to choose and access whatever kind of care they want for their healthcare. I'm an herbalist, so I feel this very, very personally. I want people to be able to access me. I want people to be able to access me when they need heroic medicine. Heroic medicine means life-saving medicine, where heroic measures are needed. Hold on, I'm just going to move my notes over a little bit. I want people to be able to access allopathic medicine. Allopathic medicine meaning kind of our mainstream definition of the modern medical model. I also want people to be able to access alternative medicines. I am all three. I am all three, and I want people to be able to access whatever kind of care they feel is appropriate for them. We're going to be talking more about accessibility in this concept of health accessibility and health justice a lot. Not just in this episode, although we will, but it's going to be a theme that runs through all of these discussions and conversations. Okay, so hold on to that idea of accessibility and health justice. Okay, so concierge medicine does make a whole lot of difference in the lives of a lot of folks. So the concept of concierge medicine, by the way, let's define that now. Concierge medicine is usually based on a subscription service. So instead of taking insurance, a provider will say, okay, for however many dollars a month, let's say $100 a month. It's sometimes a little lower, sometimes quite a bit higher, depending on where you live and who the provider is. I will be at your beck and call, right? So you can text me, you can call me, you have access to me quite a bit. Visits are usually a bit longer. If your concierge provider orders lab work or diagnostics for you, those are often covered by insurance, depending on, again, what lab or diagnostic center you're using to get those tests completed, because then those individual centers, the labs where they draw your labs, and the MRI place where you got your imaging done, that will be dependent on what insurance they take. Okay, obviously there's lots of labs that people can order that insurance don't cover, but that's not primarily what we're going to be focusing on today. So you pay every month for this subscription service, you have total access to your doctor or your medical provider, and everything is included there. Sometimes certain things are not included. So, sometimes it's just for routine care. And if you need something extra, you have to pay more. Sometimes there's cutoffs in terms of, limitations for how much access you actually have. And there's still visit length, right? There's still usually a visit length that you're expected to keep to. So it's not like what am I trying to think of? Like an all access kind of unlimited subscription. There's still some data limits there. We'll date myself here by thinking about data limits on cell phones and text usage when I was younger. There's another thing we're going to lump in today with concierge medicine, which is this idea of cash for service. So, most of us very left-leaning people agree that single payer healthcare is a good idea, but not within the confines of the medical system that we're currently in, right? Because we don't live in that reality. We don't live in the reality of a single payer healthcare system right now. So we are still living in this system where the existence of insurance companies, both public and private, have inflated the cost of medicine quite a bit. That's not the only factor that has inflated the cost of medicine, but it's one, and it's the one we're talking about now. So, this cash for service idea, while it might be great in a reality where we're all doing that, so that we're all offsetting the cost of medicine for everybody else, that's not currently what's happening. So providers are still charging inflated medical costs to their patients when they use a cash for service system, for the most part. Not every provider, but the ones we're discussing today. So, for example, you go and you call an office and they're a specialist and they don't take insurance, and they say, yeah, we'll see you, but we need $2,000 up front. It's a common thing. It's a common thing that a lot of very specialized, very sought after providers will do. The justification is usually that you get a much larger time with your provider and that you will be accessing more critical thinking skills and ability than you would in like a quick doctor's office visit where your provider is tired and overworked and rushing from patient to patient. So you get to access more time and you get to access more provider brain space. So those were the ideas, that your care is going to be more comprehensive because you get them for a longer period of time and you have paid them for their time to allow them to really think and consider what's going on instead of just feeling rushed. Okay. In theory, I love this idea. I don't want to be rushed as a provider. I want to feel like I can spend as much time as I want with my patients. And yes, the more time I'm given and the less rushed I feel, the more able I'm able to access those parts of my brain that really only come up when I can feel truly present and in the moment. Love that idea. Not so fond of the give me $2,000 up front part in order for me to do this. And we're going to talk about why. So when we talk about concierge medicine today, we're not only going to be talking about the concierge system where you pay your subscription fee every month, but we're also going to lump what I call the ginormous cash for pay, usually holistic functional providers in with that. Okay, they're not all, but most of them are more that way. Okay, so I think in theory there's a lot of this that makes sense. It sounds great. I love more access to your provider. I love more time as a provider to think and reflect and not feel rushed. Love that. However, we also need to remember that concierge medicine represents the highest brick in the healthcare hierarchy pyramid. Okay. So we're talking about healthcare hierarchy and we're talking about health justice and accessibility. Concierge medicine is the top brick. Okay. So that means first, not super accessible, way up on the top. Um, but like all pyramids, it maintains its position on the backs and labor of everything down underneath it. Okay. The reason why this episode is called Concierge Medicine and the Class War. Okay. So in this case, everything down underneath that top block in the pyramid is patients and primary care providers with limited or low resources. Okay. So they're benefiting on the backs of those that are at the lower parts of the pyramid. Don't love that. I don't love that. That is the opposite of everything that speaks to my core as a provider and also as someone who considers themselves on the more left wing of the political system. So that's the big first thing to consider there. And we're going to talk more about why that is, about why concierge medicine relies heavily on the low paid and rushed and difficult labor of everyone else below. All the stuff that we go to see concierge medicine to avoid, right? There's a reason why concierge providers are able to avoid all of that. It's because they are standing on the backs of the labor of everyone down below them, including lower income patients. Okay. So the excellence advertised in the concierge model, again, only made possible by attracting high income clients. Okay, not everybody has $2,000 to wave around. Okay. Charging small fortunes for services. We talked a little bit about that. So we've got an accessibility issue. We have, dare I say, a greed driven issue. And we also have this last thing that I'd like to talk about. It's only made possible by preserving their wealth by outsourcing cost heavy labor to other providers. Don't love that. So we're talking about ethical medicine, right? So what is the impetus of your provider? What is their goal? What are they hoping to gain by seeing you as a patient? I would like to think that we all got into medicine for the same reason. I would like to think that we all got into this for health justice reasons. And wanting to get your patients better is a health justice issue. I'm sorry if you can hear the fire alarm going off across the street. I live in Homer in the village, and our fire department blasts is very, very loud. So I apologize for that. So anytime you're seeing a provider who really, really, really just wants to help people get better, that's a health justice issue. Okay. There's other reasons to get into medicine, not great ones. But when you are paying thousands of dollars to see your provider and it's cash in hand, I have to think about the ethical considerations there and why that provider is charging that much money. So, and not only that, there's some wealth preservation that goes on there. Oftentimes, concierge offices or offices that do that cash for pay, they don't hire a staff. You're only paying that $2,000 or $3,000 or whatever you're paying just for that long block of time to see them. And it's a longer block of time, 2 to 6 hours you'll get with a provider. Awesome. Love that. Although I got to be honest with you, I don't think I can keep my brain working at that level for 6 hours. If you're really doing your job well as a provider and you're really turning that brain on, I need a little bit of a break. I don't think I'd be able to keep up that momentum for 6 hours, but that's just me. Anyway, when you pay them that money, that's just to see them. That's not for doing the behind the scenes work. Most of us, especially in primary care, know that there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes for your visit, and the referrals that need to get done, the prior authorizations that need to happen, the ordering, the talking with other offices. And oftentimes in the concierge system or in the cash for service system that exists right now, they're not doing any of that. They're going to refer you right back to your overworked, underpaid, very, very busy primary care office. And that puts a burden back on the providers who are providing care to the lowest income people. So I've had this happen several times where patients go and they see a cash for service provider, they pay thousands of dollars, and they are told that they now have to go back to their primary care provider for all the orders, all the referrals, all of the needs, all of the things that they want them to do, because they are not hiring staff to do that themselves. If they're making $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 a visit, where's the staff what are they using that money for? So there's a lot of wealth preservation. Remember, we live in capitalist medicine, and this sort of system, these are the people not just at the top of the healthcare pyramid, they're often at the top of the income pyramid. And this also, again, shows that dichotomy, not just between the kind of care that people in different income brackets are able to access, but actually goes one step farther and says, what kind of care are we attracting providers to? Where are the good providers going? And if we are living in a capitalist system, different conversation. But if that's the reality that we are with, and we're telling providers, come do this sort of medicine, you can make a bucket load of cash, and then you can outsource all your labor to the folks doing medicine and consuming medicine in the system, and just put it back on their backs. Remember that pyramid. Great. That sounds awesome as a provider. You don't have to work as much. You can make a lot of money and do very minimal behind the scenes work. In a capitalist, dysfunctional system, that is going to attract a lot of providers to doing that sort of medicine. And who is left for everyone else? Again, this is another way into that pyramid. So now we're not even creating a care pyramid. We're creating a provider pyramid where we are actually attracting great providers from lower parts of the pyramid up to that top pyramid so that they can sit on the top too and push further down on the backs of lower income providers and patients, and it just gets smushed. I hate this concept, guys. I hate it. So that's the pyramid concepts that I want to introduce. So if you guys have any questions on that, you can always drop a comment or send me an email or whatever you want. But remember, we've got this kind of dual smushing. So we've got the first smush, which is that it's not accessible, right? And so we lose that accessibility in healthcare. But the second part is that provider attraction. I want providers to do well too. I want to make money. I am not a capitalist, but I live in a capitalist society. I would like to make some money too, but not at the cost of my peers and my patients and my communities and neighborhoods. That's health justice, right? Part of health justice is saying no to unethical medicine, whether you are a provider or a patient. Okay. And knowing this stuff, knowing that this is where the road leads, and being aware of it. Okay. And just kicking that healthcare hierarchy pyramid, just kicking it down. Okay. Let's be pyramid kickers together. Okay. So again, this perpetuates a system where the rich migrate up the care pyramid, pulling more and more financial resources away from the lower levels, concentrating capital and time at the top, and ensuring that the only things that trickle down that pyramid to patients and providers in the lower rungs are extra expenses, extra work, overextension, and burnout. This is one of the reasons why your provider's so tired all the time. We're tired of doing the work of other people who are making a lot more money than us. That is late stage capitalism at work. Okay, it's here. It's in our healthcare system. Don't do it. So this keeps the health access hierarchy in place by its very design. Okay, this is the opposite of health justice. So if you are for justice and if you are for the class war, you can't buy into this concierge system or the cash for pay system, or sorry, cash for service system. Its very design is an insult to health, justice, and medical ethics. Period. Okay, so what are we going to do about it? Move on. You can absolutely be for all the hopes and dreams that concierge medicine brings. Okay, these are good things. Like we said at the beginning, we want patients to get better. And yeah, when you have 4 hours with your provider and they can access their brain more, chances are they're going to get more to the bottom of things, but also sometimes not. We're going to talk about that too. Increased attention in the healthcare experience, giving your doctor's brain more than 20 minutes to work, and thinking outside the box in individualized and personalized care, right? We love all of that. We want that. That's what we want. I'm not dissing any of that. I want that for my patients too. I want that for our communities, but I want it for everyone, not just the patients and providers at the top. Okay. So how do we fix this? Okay. I want to talk now to the patients watching this. We're all patients, right? I'm a patient. I'm a patient too. We're all patients. So we all rely on medical care of some kind point in our lives. So every time you rush to the top of that pyramid, you stomp on the working class seeking care at the lower levels. How do you stop? How do you stop doing this? Let's talk about managing expectations. Okay. Well, it would be easy to just tell concierge providers to cease and desist. They're not going to. Okay. It's the same reason why corporations don't usually stop relying on sweatshop labor. Okay. It's easy, it's cheap, and it makes them rich. They're not just going to stop, right? So they're making a bucket of money to do what they do. Okay, that's not, we don't live in a system, and I can't blame them for that. It's not their fault. We live in a capitalist society. Okay. We have survival instincts as humans, and we are always adapting to the communities and the situations that we live in. The number one reason why humans have lived and done as well as we have is because we are so adaptable and we thrive in community, but we are very adaptable to what's going on around us. And our survival instinct is based on adapting to whatever rules and guidelines and structure is in those communities. So I can't blame providers who leave the system to pursue this sort of model outside the insurance system, outside the healthcare model that we have, because it speaks to their ability to survive in a capitalist society. It's not all their fault. Okay, we have to take some accountability here as patients. This is capitalism after all. So it's on the patient, it's on us as patients to take their business elsewhere, to boycott exploitation and hierarchy in the healthcare experience. How? Okay, first thing I want you to do is I want you to, number one, I want you to check your values. Okay. If it seems like it's too good to be true, it probably is. Okay. I want you to think back to that sweatshop idea. So think of it like that $2 shirt you resisted ordering from Shein or wherever, because you knew it was too good to be true. Okay. And you care about the lives of children in Bangladesh. Okay. Nothing comes without strings attached. Okay. I told you the strings already. Now you know about the strings. And the working class is usually what ends up getting pulled. Okay. That's the string that usually ends up pulled. Okay. Number two, I want you to check your expectations. We've established that there's no such thing as a free meal. Okay. So the shining beacon of healthcare hope on the hill only gleams because it's piled up on top of all the backs of the overworked, overtired, overextended physicians and their sick patients that rely on the insurance system. Okay. So that's the expectation that doesn't exist, that you've got this perfect beacon, that everything is going to be solved in your healthcare. We're going to talk about that expectation. But that it's an illusion, right? Okay. Did you actually think that $2 shirt was realistic? Okay. Did you think that this was something that you could obtain really? Do you think that that comes for free? That's the only thing that's costing is your $2 for the shirt or your $2,000 for your healthcare experience. It's not the only cost. There's hidden costs, right? Should we expect this? Should we expect that this is the standard for our healthcare? Let's suspend the idea that we live in this like terrible capitalist healthcare system and you're just trying to get out of it. is this something that we should be expecting anyway from our providers? Should we be expecting 4 hours with a provider in the room? Is that something that we need actually, like at our core? Is it something we need truly? No, it's not. You don't need 24-hour access to your provider. You don't need to text them every 5 minutes, and you don't need 4 to 6 hour visits with them. You don't need this. Okay. It's part of capitalist convenience culture. It is. I'm here to tell you that that's what it is. It's part of capitalist convenience culture. So it offers an unrealistic set of promises that have never been regarded as a necessity in the history of humans. Okay. And it's not now either. You don't need it. Okay. We've been told that we need it by the capitalist structure of the healthcare hierarchy. We've been told we need to get to that top of that healthcare hierarchy. You have to get to the top. That's capitalism. Okay. You don't. And this doesn't belong at the top of the top of the pyramid anyway. It doesn't belong there. It's an illusion. Okay. Um, just like you don't need the $2 shirt, you don't need the piles of plastic crap from the blood of the Asian subcontinent. Okay. You don't need it. You don't. You're told that you do. You don't. And you don't need this either. Okay. You don't need to be waited on hand and foot by a medical office. You don't need 6 hours of a healthcare provider's time. You don't need fancy supplements, and you don't need the scientifically questionable diagnoses you are probably going to get out of that 6 hours. Okay. Because after 6 hours, things start spiraling a little bit in terms of their reliability. And we're going to talk a little bit about that pretty soon. But at the end of the day, you don't need concierge medicine, period. The illusion that you do is a product of the American medical capitalist machine. Okay, so now, obviously, your health is not actually a t-shirt, okay? Sometimes this is life and death stuff we're talking about. And if you've got the cash and your life is on the line, and a concierge experience offers a lifeline and it offers hope of health, then why wouldn't anybody in their right mind do everything possible to get better? Yeah, I completely agree with that. And again, we are what we are. We live in the society we live in. I mean, you can't undo it in a day, right? And if you have to choose between living or dying, accessing expensive care, or risking not getting better, and you have the cash, why wouldn't you do everything you can to get better, right? It's not a t-shirt, right? Some of us can't live without really, really high quality medicine. Okay. This is our health. We need our ability to function, take care of our families, take care of ourselves. So obviously I understand that this is different, but you can have that. You can have all of that. It doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice your ethics. You can still be an ethical consumer of healthcare. I promise you can. You can have both. Okay. Believe it or not, contrary to what the concierge world would have you believe, there are actually smart, curious, capable providers available to you outside the concierge system. These providers will either take insurance, or they will charge a reasonable amount for their services, or they will have sliding scales or barter plans available. All of this stuff exists. I promise it does. They also do their own work. They cover their own expenses, and they value equality and accessibility in the healthcare system. Okay. So keep those things in mind, because those are going to be our foundation of what I want you as consumers to look for in ethical healthcare. Okay. So we've got providers that take insurance or charge a reasonable amount or have sliding scales available. So that's the financial piece. But then again, they do their own work, cover their own expenses, and they value equity. Okay. I want to remind you that there are correct and incorrect reasons to enter a healing profession. We talked a little bit about that already. Bleeding the system dry of resources is not one of them. Okay. Providers who are really in this to help people and to improve the lives of everyone, regardless of class, they do not practice in the concierge world. Therefore, don't look for them there. Okay. Okay, so how do we shop for an ethically sourced medical provider? Just like the ethically sourced t-shirt, how do we shop for an ethically sourced provider of medicine? Okay, here's some tips. Okay, this is the part where I finished complaining about everything, and now we're talking about real, tangible ways forward to solve the problem that you can actually do. Okay, my goal is to arm you as patients, not tell you that you're doing everything wrong. Okay, so number one, look for curiosity over promises. If your provider is telling you that if you give them thousands of dollars, they will cure all of your problems, figure out what's wrong, diagnose everything, and basically be the best thing since sliced bread, and be that shining beacon of unrealistic expectations, I gotta be honest with you, it's probably not the way to go. Look for providers who are curious. Curiosity also, just kind of on an ethical, theoretical level, is the opposite of arrogance. So doubt, curiosity, skepticism, humility, okay, all those speak to humility and also to being that lifelong learner, okay? That is the opposite of someone who tells you that they've got it all figured out. Give me your money and I will promise you the world. I will be the Messiah in your healthcare life. Okay. Anyone who's saying things that sound similar to that they are the answer to all of your questions and all your concerns, just because they're working outside of the system, be very skeptical. Be very skeptical of the information that they tell you also. So again, this isn't just unethical medicine because of the healthcare hierarchy and social justice and the class war. It's also unethical medicine because sometimes the things you get told by these providers are not actually that reliable. And in fact, I tell my patients to be skeptical and critical when they are approaching providers like this, because they tend to operate in a pseudoscience world. Okay, hit on that for a second at the end. So curiosity over promises. That is a humble person over an arrogant one. Okay. The curious person is more likely to get to the right answer. I promise you. Look for intention over financial resources. Okay. So what is their intent? Are they trying to do a good job? Are they trying to seek truth and fact? Or are they just telling you that they can provide you with the world? Okay. Because I'm more interested in what my provider's intention is. Are they intending to take care of me and other people in my community? And are they motivated by a sense of genuine caretaking and concern? Or there's some financial motivators here? Okay. I'd rather my provider give me 40 minutes of their time and take my insurance, but really, really, really be in this because they're concerned about me and my community, than have 4 hours with them only because I have given them thousands of dollars. That's transactional. Okay. That's not genuine. That's not genuine concern and care. It's transactional. Okay. It's capitalist. They're very excited about the thousands of dollars that you just gave them. Treat what they're saying with skepticism. Look for commitment to unconditional access to good health, even though, of course, we're not in a position where any one of us alone can change everything. I want my provider to be committed not just to me, but to those in my communities who are less fortunate. And a community might be a neighborhood, it might be a state, it might be a country, doesn't matter. Or it might be a certain patient population if we're talking about specialty practices. Okay. I want them to be just as committed to me as they are to the person that is on Medicare or Medicaid, or could only come to me once a year because that's all that they could afford. I don't want their commitment to unconditional access to good health to be conditional on how much you can pay them. Okay. That shouldn't be a condition in our genuine concern for our communities and patients. Lastly, look for a teammate over an authority figure. So again, this speaks to this Messiah concept that if you pay me $3,000, I will solve all your problems idea. I want a teammate. Definitely give me the provider that sees me for 20 minutes, even, but looks to me as a peer, looks to me as a teammate, hears what I'm saying, validates what I'm saying, and doesn't just speak down to me and give me the message from on high as if it was God coming down to Moses, okay, which is a lot of the attitudes of these types of cash for service or concierge providers, okay? So you have paid them for an answer. They are going to give you one because you have paid them for an answer. That is the other problem, which we're going to get into in a minute. But that also creates not just a hierarchy in the healthcare system, but in the visit. Now you've created this hierarchy because of the payment structure and because of the way this type of healthcare is presented, where you don't have a teammate now. You don't have someone down there in the trenches with you, all right? You have someone who has now presented themselves as the king on high, okay? That's not a dichotomy that I want in my medical visit, and you shouldn't either, okay? Not only does it kind of pave the way for invalidating healthcare experiences, but it also, I don't want to get into a conversation about false idols here. This is not a religious forum at all, but it creates this idea of whatever they say is gold. Okay. And that's just oftentimes not the case and not the place to look. And we get into some problems with actual diagnosis, treatment, and patient outcomes with that. Okay. So now we're not even talking about like, social justice here. We're talking about like whether providers are actually finding answers to patients' problems or whether they're not. Okay. So lastly, the last thing is be skeptical. Be a skeptical consumer of healthcare. Answers to complex health questions or conditions are not actually found during an all-day visit with a provider who charged you $5,000 for the privilege of their company. And that's it in a nutshell. That's it in a nutshell, okay? Be skeptical of anyone telling you that they are the key to good health. They are not your friend. You bought their companionship, and they will sell you answers that may or may not be true because they know they can. That's the summary of kind of everything that I just alluded to, right? Okay. So all of this to say, when we're talking about the definition of a good healer, good healers do not gatekeep healing. They don't gatekeep healing from you. They don't gatekeep healing to low-income patients, and they don't gatekeep healing to other providers. They are not gatekeepers. I want you to keep that in mind because if it seems like they are, bail. They are on the wrong side of the revolution, and their promises and solutions should be looked at with a critical eye. Okay. So after throwing all of that at you, that is what I have for you for today. If you have questions, comments, or anything else you'd like to say, feel free to leave a comment. And just remember, we're all here to help each other. I want you to be able to find the right answers for your health, be an ethical provider and consumer of healthcare. I want you to get better. I want communities to get better. And I want you to know the steps forward of what you're looking for when you decide to make a healthcare pact with your provider. Okay, so I hope I've helped you do that. I hope I have helped outline some tips for what to look for in a good healer. And if you have any questions, like I said, just drop them. Long live the class war. Long live honest, ethical medicine, and long live the good healer. Bye, guys.